The sun hung low over Arroyo del Sol, painting the New Mexico territory in shades of rust and gold. Dust devils danced across the main street, carrying the scent of sage and desperation through the weathered wooden building. It was the summer of 1883, and the drought had stretched on for 3 months, turning the grasslands brittle as old bones. Boone Carver squinted against the glare as he led his mare toward the water trough outside Murphy's general store. The animal's hooves kicked up small clouds with each step, adding to the fine layer of red dirt that coated everything in town. At 32, Boone cut a solitary figure tall and lean, with shoulders that spoke of hard work and eyes that held shadows from a past he'd rather forget. "Easy, Sage," he murmured to the mare, running a calloused hand along her neck. The horse nickered softly, grateful for even the tepid water that filled the trough. "That all the water you got for them horses?" Old Pete Murphy called from the shade of his store's awning. The proprietor fanned himself with a week-old newspaper, his shirt stained with sweat despite the early hour. "Making do with what we have," Boone replied, his voice carrying the careful neutrality of a man who'd learned to keep his thoughts close. "Same as everyone." Pete spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Heard tell the railroad's bringing in water by the barrel, charging a pretty penny for it, too." Boone's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The Santa Fe Railroad had been both blessing and curse to the territory, bringing commerce and people, but also men like Silas Crook, whose appetite for profit knew no bounds. A commotion down the street drew his attention. A modest wagon pulled by 2 tired-looking draft horses had stopped near the schoolhouse. A woman in a dust-covered traveling dress was helping 2 younger companions down from the seat. Even from a distance, Boone could see the weariness in their movements, the way travelers looked when they'd been too long on unforgiving roads. "New folks," Pete observed, following Boone's gaze. "Widow woman from Missouri, they say. Come to teach school." The woman turned, and Boone caught a glimpse of auburn hair beneath her bonnet, a straight spine despite obvious fatigue. She couldn't have been more than 28 or 29, young to be widowed and trailing family across the territories. "Name's Quinn," Pete continued, warming to his gossip. "Anna Quinn. Got a sister and brother with her. Shame to bring them young ones to a place like this, what with the troubles we've been having." Boone didn't ask about the troubles. He knew well enough cattle rustling, disputes over water rights, and the occasional robbery on the mountain passes. The law reached thin out here, and men like Crook filled the vacuum with their own brand of justice. He was about to turn away when the younger boy stumbled, nearly falling in the street. Without thinking, Boone found himself moving toward them. "Steady there, son," he said, catching the boy's arm. The child looked up at him with fever-bright eyes, his face flushed despite the dust that clung to it. "I'm sorry, mister," the boy mumbled. "Just tired is all." The woman Anna Quinn was beside them in an instant. Up close, Boone could see the determined set of her jaw, the way her green eyes assessed him quickly, protectively. "Thank you," she said simply. "Jamie's not feeling well. It's been a long journey." "You'll want to get him water and rest," Boone said. "Doc Morrison's office is 2 doors down from the hotel if you need him." Her younger sister, a girl of about 16 with the same auburn hair, stepped forward. "We're grateful for your help, Mr. Carver," he supplied. "Boone Carver." Anna's eyes flickered with something recognition. No, that was impossible. They'd never met. "Mr. Carver," she acknowledged with a slight nod. "I'm Anna Quinn. This is my sister Margaret and my brother Jamie." "Maggie," the girl corrected with a hint of spirit that reminded Boone of mustangs before they were broken. "We should find lodging," Anna said, her hand resting protectively on Jamie's shoulder. "Thank you again." Boone touched the brim of his hat and stepped back. He watched them make their way toward the hotel, the boy leaning heavily against his sister. Something about them, maybe it was their dignity despite their circumstances, or the way they held together like a small unit against the world stirred an uncomfortable feeling in his chest. "Asking for trouble, that one," Pete Murphy said, having wandered over to watch the exchange. "Woman alone with no menfolk, trying to make a go of it out here. Crook's already been asking about the new school teacher." Boone's expression hardened. Crook would do well to mind his own business. Pete raised his hands in mock surrender. "Just saying what everyone's thinking. You know how it is. Pretty widow shows up. People talk, especially with everything else that's been happening." Before Boone could respond, the thunder of hooves announced new arrivals. 3 riders swept into town, their horses lathered with sweat and dust. The lead rider, a man named Garrett who worked security for the mining operations, pulled up short near the water trough. "There's been another robbery," Garrett announced to anyone within earshot. "Up on Coyote Pass, stage carrying silver from the Dolores mine." A crowd began to gather. Boone remained where he was, but his attention sharpened. "Anyone hurt?" someone called out. Driver took a bullet to the shoulder. "He'll live." Garrett's eyes swept the crowd. But here's the strange part. Before he passed out, he swore he heard one of the robbers call out a name, said it clear as day, Anna Quinn. A murmur ran through the crowd like wildfire through dry grass. Boone's gaze automatically sought the hotel where the Quinns had disappeared. The timing was unfortunate, to say the least. "That's the new school teacher's name?" Pete whispered, loud enough for half the street to hear. Marshal Tom Hadley pushed through the crowd, his badge catching the late afternoon sun. A decent man trying to do an impossible job. Hadley had aged 10 years in the 2 he'd been wearing the star. "Now hold on," the marshal said, raising his voice. "Let's not go jumping to conclusions. Could be coincidence, could be misheard. Garrett, I'll need to talk to that driver when he's able." But Boone could see the damage was already done. In a town starved for drama, where suspicion grew as easily as tumbleweeds, the seed had been planted. As the crowd dispersed, trading theories and speculation, Boone made a decision that surprised him. Instead of heading back to his ranch as planned, he tied Sage to the hotel's hitching post and went inside. The lobby was dim and cooler than the street. Mrs. Elmore, who ran the establishment with an iron fist and a keen eye for gossip, looked up from her ledger. "Mr. Carver," she said, clearly surprised. "Don't often see you in town this late." "The Quinn family," he said without preamble. "They get settled." Her expression grew guarded. "Room 7, that boy of theirs is poorly. I sent up water and clean linens." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "You hear what happened up at the pass?" "I heard." "Terrible business. And with that name being mentioned." She shook her head. "Poor woman just arrived and already there's talk." Boone pulled out a silver dollar and placed it on the counter. "Send up some soup from the kitchen. And maybe Doc Morrison, if he's not in his cups." Mrs. Elmore's eyebrows rose, but she pocketed the coin. "That's mighty charitable of you. Mr. Carver, any particular reason for your interest?" "Just being neighborly," he said, already turning away. But as he stepped back into the fading light, Boone knew it was more than that. Maybe it was the way Anna Quinn had looked at him, not with the fear or calculation he was used to seeing in people's eyes, but with a simple directness that had become rare in his experience. Or maybe it was just that he was tired of watching the strong prey on the vulnerable while he stood aside, nursing old wounds and older guilt. The sun was setting now, painting Arroyo del Sol in shades of blood and shadow. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and others took up the call. It was going to be a long summer, Boone thought. Longer still for a widow with 2 young ones and a name that had already been spoken in connection with robbery. He mounted Sage and turned toward home, but his thoughts remained in town, in room 7 of the hotel, where strangers were about to discover just how unforgiving the territory could be. The moon was rising by the time he reached his ranch. The small house sat dark against the sky. the corral holding a handful of horses he'd been working with. It wasn't nothing compared to the spread some of the other ranchers had built, but it was his, bought with saved wages and sweat. He unsaddled Sage and turned her out with the others, then stood for a moment watching the horses move in the darkness. The white-headed Mustang he'd been gentling came to the fence, curious but still wary. "You and me both. Boy," Boone murmured. "Neither one of us quite sure about trusting folks." But as he headed inside, lighting a lamp against the darkness, he found himself thinking about green eyes and auburn hair, about a boy with fever and a girl with spirit, about a name spoken at a crime scene and the way rumors could destroy lives faster than bullets. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and sat at his rough-hewn table, the lamp casting dancing shadows on the walls. Through the window, he could see the lights of Arroyo del Sol glimmering in the distance like fallen stars. Tomorrow, he decided, tomorrow he would ride back to town, see how the boy was faring. It was the decent thing to do. The fact that it would also let him gauge how the town was treating its newest arrivals had nothing to do with it. Or so he told himself as the night deepened and the coyotes sang their ancient songs to an uncaring sky. The morning sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Marshal Tom Hadley knocked on the door of room 7. Anna Quinn answered, her face composed despite the dark circles under her eyes that spoke of a sleepless night. Mrs. Quinn, Hadley said, removing his hat. "I apologize for disturbing you so early, but I need to ask you some questions about yesterday." Anna's grip on the door tightened slightly. "Of course. Marshal, please come in." The room was modest but clean. Jamie lay on one of the 2 beds, his color better than the day before. Maggie sat beside him, reading from a worn book. She looked up with eyes that were too knowing for her 16 years. "I'll get straight to the point," Hadley said, clearly uncomfortable. "There was a robbery yesterday on Coyote Pass. The driver claims he heard your name mentioned by one of the robbers." Anna's composure never wavered. "I see. And you're here to determine if I somehow managed to rob a stagecoach while simultaneously arriving in town with my family." Despite himself, Hadley's mouth twitched toward a smile. "When you put it that way, ma'am, it does sound far-fetched, but I have to follow up on all leads." "We left Independence 6 weeks ago," Anna said, moving to a travel trunk and producing a leather folder. "Here are our papers, Jamie's school records, a letter from Reverend Matthews confirming my teaching position, and receipts from stops along the way." Hadley examined the documents carefully. "These seem to be in order. Can anyone verify when you arrived in town?" "Mr. Carver helped us yesterday when Jamie stumbled," Maggie offered. "And Mrs. Elmore at the hotel desk saw us come in." The marshal nodded, handing back the papers. "I'll speak with them. Again, my apologies for the intrusion. It's just that with tensions running high lately." "I understand," Anna said. "You have a job to do." As Hadley turned to leave, he paused at the door. "A word of advice, Mrs. Quinn. There are powerful men in this town who don't take kindly to disruptions. Keep your head down. Teach your school, and you should be fine." "After he left," Maggie burst out, "disruptions! We've been here less than a day." "Hush," Anna said gently, but her jaw was set in a determined line. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." A knock interrupted them. Anna opened the door to find Boone Carver standing in the hallway, hat in hand. "Morning, Mrs. Quinn. I was in town getting supplies and thought I'd check on the boy." Jamie perked up from his bed. "You're the man who caught me yesterday." "That's right," Boone said, entering when Anna stepped aside. "Feeling better?" "Much better. Sir, Anna made me drink about a gallon of water and some awful tea." "Willow bark tea," Anna corrected. "For the fever." Boone's eyes swept the room, taking in the modest belongings, the way everything was arranged with careful precision despite their recent arrival. "Marshal been by?" "Just left," Anna replied, watching him carefully. Apparently, I'm suspected of robbery. Town's on edge, Boone said. Been a string of troubles lately. Stolen cattle, missing silver shipments. People are quick to point fingers. And a woman alone makes an easy target, Anna added quietly. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an understanding, perhaps, of what it meant to be judged before the facts were known. Mr. Carver, Maggie spoke up. You have a horse ranch, don't you? I heard Mrs. Elmore mention it. Small operation, Boone confirmed. Nothing fancy. I've always wanted to learn to ride properly, Maggie said, her enthusiasm breaking through her attempted grown-up demeanor. Back in Missouri, we only had old draft horses. Maggie, Anna warned. It's all right, Boone said. If you're going to live out here, knowing how to ride and handle yourself around horses is practical. Tell you what, once you're settled, and if your sister approves, you can come out to the ranch. I've got a gentle mare that would suit a beginner. Maggie's face lit up, but Anna looked uncertain. That's very kind, but we couldn't impose. No imposition. The horses need exercise anyway. He turned to Jamie. You too, once you're feeling up to it. Before Anna could respond, heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway. The door, which had been left ajar, swung open to reveal Silas Crook. The railroad supervisor was a large man who wore his authority like an expensive suit, obvious and slightly ill-fitting. Pardon the intrusion, Crook said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. His eyes fixed on Anna with an intensity that made Boone shift slightly, placing himself between them. Mrs. Quinn, isn't it? I'm Silas Crook, supervisor for the Santa Fe Railroad. Mr. Crook, Anna acknowledged coolly. Heard you had some trouble with the marshal this morning. Unfortunate misunderstanding. I'm sure. His smile was as oily as his hair. I wanted to welcome you to Arroyo del Sol and let you know that the railroad values education. We might even be able to arrange some additional funding for school supplies. That's generous, Anna said carefully. Of course. We'd expect cooperation in return. The railroad has interest to protect, and sometimes information comes to a school teacher's attention. Children talk, their parents talk. You understand. The room seemed to grow smaller. Jamie had gone very still on his bed, while Maggie's hands clenched in her lap. I understand perfectly, Anna said, her voice steady as steel. You want me to spy on the townspeople. Crook's smile faltered. Such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as community partnership. I prefer to think of teaching as teaching, Anna replied. Nothing more, nothing less. The supervisor's face darkened. That's a shame, Mrs. Quinn. A real shame. The school board might find it difficult to support a teacher who doesn't appreciate the railroad's contributions to this town, and with these robbery accusations hanging over you. Is that a threat? Boone asked quietly, speaking for the first time since Crook's arrival. Crook's eyes flicked to him dismissively. Carver, I didn't notice you there. This is a private conversation. Nothing's private when you barge into a lady's room uninvited, Boone said. And from where I stand, sounds like you're trying to blackmail the new school teacher. Careful. Carver, you're already on thin ice after that incident last year. Wouldn't want to see you lose that little ranch of yours. The tension in the room was sharp enough to cut. Anna stepped forward. Mr. Crook, I appreciate your visit, but my brother needs rest. Perhaps we can discuss school matters at a more appropriate time and place. Crook straightened his vest. Of course, but don't take too long to consider my offer. Mrs. Quinn, opportunities like this don't come often. He tipped his hat mockingly. Good day. After his footsteps faded down the hall, Maggie let out a breath. What a horrible man. Powerful, though, Boone said, and not used to being told no. Anna sank into a chair, suddenly looking very tired. What have I gotten us into? You stood up to him, Boone said. That took courage. or foolishness. Sometimes they're the same thing. He moved toward the door. Look, Mrs. Quinn Anna, you're going to need allies here. I know you don't know me from Adam, but my offer stands. The ranch is always open if you need anything. Why? Anna asked, studying him. Why would you risk Crook's anger for strangers? Boone was quiet for a moment. Maybe because I'm tired of watching men like him run roughshod over decent folks. Maybe because I remember what it's like to be judged for something you didn't do. He put on his hat. Or maybe I just think your sister would enjoy learning to ride. After he left, the room was quiet except for Jamie's breathing. Finally, Maggie spoke. I like him. He seems kind. Anna agreed cautiously. He stood up for us. Nobody's done that in a long time. Anna reached over to smooth her sister's hair. We stand up for each other. That's what matters. But as the morning wore on and the heat began to build, Anna found herself thinking about Boone Carver's quiet strength, the way he'd positioned himself between her and Crook without making a fuss about it, in a town full of suspicion and greed. Perhaps they had found one friend. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Anna stood at the window watching the street below. The good people of Arroyo del Sol went about their business, shopkeepers closing up, ranch hands heading for the saloon, women hurrying home before full dark. Anna? Jamie called softly. Are we going to be okay here? She turned from the window, forcing a smile. Of course we are. We're together, aren't we? That's all that matters. But somewhere in the gathering darkness, she heard horses approaching fast. Through the window, she saw riders heading out of town toward the mountains, and even from a distance. Something about their urgency made her uneasy. The West was full of secrets. She was learning. Some were written in the dust and tracks around waterholes, others in the ledgers of powerful men, and some, perhaps, were carried on the night wind by riders who knew that a name, any name, could be used as a weapon if spoken at the right moment. She drew the curtains and returned to her family, pushing aside her worries. Tomorrow she would visit the schoolhouse, begin preparing for her classes. She would prove that Anna Quinn was exactly who she claimed to be, a teacher. Nothing more, nothing less. But as the night deepened and the town settled into uneasy sleep, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that her name, spoken at a robbery she knew nothing about, was just the beginning of troubles that would test not just her courage, but her faith in the possibility of justice in a land where might too often made right. Outside, unknown to those in room 7, fresh tracks led from the well at the edge of town toward Boone Carver's ranch, tracks made by boots, not horses, and pressed deep into the earth as if their maker had been carrying something heavy. Come morning, those tracks would raise new questions in a town already drowning in suspicion. But for now, the Quinn family slept, unaware that their arrival in Arroyo del Sol had set in motion events that would change not just their own fates, but the destiny of the town itself. The morning sun glinted off the rocky outcroppings of Coyote Pass as Boone and Anna guided their horses along the narrow trail. 3 days had passed since their tense encounter with Crook, and Anna had surprised Boone by accepting his offer to examine the robbery site. You sure you want to do this? Boone asked, watching as Anna confidently handled the borrowed mare. For someone who claimed limited riding experience, she sat a horse remarkably well. I spent years reading maps for my late husband's surveying business, Anna replied, her eyes scanning the terrain. If there's something unusual about this location, I might spot it. They rounded a bend where the stagecoach had been attacked. Broken wood from the strongbox still littered the ground, and dried blood marked where the driver had fallen. Anna dismounted, pulling a worn leather map case from her saddlebag. This is interesting, she murmured, unfolding a territorial map. Look here, the main road curves around Devil's Canyon, but there's an old Spanish trail that cuts straight through. Only locals would know about it. Boone studied the map over her shoulder, acutely aware of her nearness. You're right. The robbers could have used it to get ahead of the stage, which means they're familiar with the area. Anna continued, then pointed to fresh scratches on a nearby boulder. "What do you make of these?" Boone examined the marks closely. They looked deliberate, almost like letters. Could be a signal of some kind. Anna was already searching the ground nearby. Her thoroughness impressed him. She moved with the methodical precision of someone accustomed to piecing together puzzles. After several minutes, she held up something that caught the light. "Shell casing," she announced. "But look at this marking." Boone took the brass casing, noting the unusual stamp VB. His expression darkened. "That's not a standard ammunition mark." "Custom loads," Anna suggested. "Maybe, or someone's initials." He pocketed the evidence. "Good eye." They continued searching as the sun climbed higher. Near a cluster of juniper bushes, Anna spotted something white caught on a branch. She retrieved it carefully, a lady's handkerchief, finely made with embroidered initials E.W. "Eleanor Ward." Anna read aloud. "Do you know anyone by that name?" "No," Boone said slowly. "And that's what bothers me. In a town the size of Arroyo del Sol, everybody knows everybody. A woman with a handkerchief this fine would stand out." Thunder rumbled in the distance, drawing their attention to the darkening sky. The morning's clear weather was giving way to building storm clouds. "We should find shelter," Boone said. "Summer storms here come fast and mean." They mounted, quickly. Boone leading them toward a cave he knew about a quarter-mile up the trail. The first fat raindrops were falling as they ducked inside, bringing the horses under the rocky overhang. The cave was deeper than it appeared, with a sandy floor and walls carved smooth by centuries of wind. As the storm intensified outside, turning the world into a curtain of gray rain, they settled against the back wall. "Thank you for believing me," Anna said quietly, watching the rain. "Most people in town seem ready to string me up based on hearsay." "I've learned not to trust first impressions," Boone replied. "Or easy answers." She turned to study him. "The marshal mentioned an incident last year with Crook." Boone's jaw tightened. He rarely spoke about it, but something about Anna's steady presence made the words come easier. "I was working as a territorial marshal then. Got word of a smuggling operation using railroad connections. When my partner and I tried to investigate, we rode into an ambush." "Your partner?" "Tom Brennan. Good man. Had a wife and 2 little girls." Boone's voice roughened. "He didn't make it out." Anna's hand moved toward his, then stopped. "I'm sorry." "Later, I found evidence that Crook had been tipped off about our investigation, but there was no proof. And with Tom dead," he shrugged. "I resigned, bought the ranch with what savings I had, been keeping my head down ever since. Until now." "Until now," he agreed, meeting her eyes. "Sometimes keeping your head down just means you can't see the boot coming." Anna was quiet for a moment, then said, "My husband died 2 years ago. Not dramatically, just fever that wouldn't break. But he left debts I didn't know about. Gambling debts? The kind men collect with threats." "Is that why you came west?" "Partly, also because Maggie's smart as a whip and deserves better than what Missouri could offer. And Jamie," she smiled softly, "Jamie needs space to grow strong." The storm raged outside, but in the cave, there was an odd sense of peace. Boone found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months. "Can I ask you something?" Anna said. "Why did you really offer to help us?" "It's more than just standing up to Crook." Boone considered his words. "Maybe because I see something of myself in your situation. Outsiders trying to find a place in a hard land. Or maybe..." He looked at her directly. "Maybe because when I saw you stand up to Crook without flinching, I remembered what courage looks like." The air between them shifted, charged with something beyond the storm's electricity. Anna's cheeks colored slightly, but she didn't look away. "The rain's letting up," she said finally, though neither moved. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the storm pass. When they finally emerged, the world looked washed clean, puddles reflecting the afternoon sky. As they mounted up, Anna said, "We should show this evidence to Marshal Hadley." "We should," Boone agreed. "But carefully. Not everyone wearing a badge can be trusted." They rode back toward town, their horses picking carefully through the now muddy trail. Neither noticed the rider on the distant ridge, watching them through field glasses. Back in Arroyo del Sol, Marshal Hadley examined the shell casing and handkerchief with interest. V, B, and E, W, he mused. Could be connected, could be coincidence. "Tom," Boone said, using the marshal's first name deliberately. "This wasn't random. These robbers know the territory, use custom ammunition, and someone's trying to frame Mrs. Quinn." Hadley sighed, looking older than his years. "I know, Boone, but knowing and proving are different beasts. And with Crook breathing down my neck—" "Since when do you let Crook dictate law enforcement?" Anna asked sharply. The marshal's face flushed. "Since he got the town council to cut my budget in half. Since my deputy quit rather than face down his railroad bulls. Since—" He stopped himself, breathing hard. "We understand," Anna said more gently. "But surely this evidence means something." "I'll look into it," Hadley promised. "Discreetly. In the meantime, both of you be careful. If someone's orchestrating this, they won't appreciate you poking around." As they left the marshal's office, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Main Street. Several townspeople watched them pass, whispering behind hands. "Let me walk you back to the hotel," Boone offered. "I need to stop at the schoolhouse first." Anna said, "Classes start next week, and I haven't even seen the inside yet." The schoolhouse sat at the edge of town, a simple wooden structure with a bell tower and windows on two sides. Anna produced a key, and they entered together. Dust motes danced in the slanted light. The room held 20 desks of varying sizes, a pot-bellied stove, and a chalkboard that had seen better days. "It's perfect," Anna breathed, and Boone realized she meant it. She walked between the desks, running her fingers along the worn wood. "This is why we came, not for safety or easy living, but for this, a chance to build something." "You'll be a good teacher," Boone said, meaning it. "I hope so." She turned to him, backlit by the window. "Boone, I need to ask a favor. If something happens to me—" "Nothing's going to happen." "If something happens," she continued firmly, "will you look after Maggie and Jamie just until they can get back east to my cousin?" The request hit him like a physical blow. "Anna, promise me." He saw then what it cost her to ask this woman who'd been fighting battles alone for so long. "I promise, but it won't come to that." She nodded, relief flickering across her features. "Thank you." As they locked up the schoolhouse, neither noticed the fresh boot prints in the dust outside prints that hadn't been there when they'd entered. Someone else was very interested in the new schoolteacher's movements. That night, Boone sat on his porch, the day's events turning over in his mind. The shell casing and handkerchief were on the table beside him, evidence of a mystery that grew deeper with each revelation. His thoughts kept returning to the cave, to Anna's steady presence and the way she'd listened without judgment to his story. It had been a long time since he'd felt that kind of connection with anyone. In the distance, a coyote howled, and others answered. The sound reminded him that for all their pretense of civilization, Arroyo del Sol was still wild country, where justice was often what you made it, and truth could be as elusive as water in the desert. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd teach Maggie to ride as promised. He'd check his fence lines and water sources. He'd go about his business as if nothing had changed. But something had changed. In agreeing to help Anna Quinn, he'd stepped back into the fight he'd walked away from a year ago. This time, though, he wasn't wearing a badge. This time, it was personal. As the stars emerged one by one in the vast New Mexico sky, Boone Carver made his own promise whatever game was being played in the shadows of Arroyo del Sol. Anna Quinn and her family wouldn't face it alone. The night wind carried the scent of sage and possibility. And somewhere in the darkness, plans were being made that would soon test everyone's courage in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The Harvest Festival transformed Arroyo del Sol into a bustling hive of activity. Colorful bunting stretched between buildings, and the smell of roasting meat mingled with the dust kicked up by arriving wagons. Ranchers, miners, and townspeople gathered in the main square where merchants had set up stalls selling everything from hand-tooled leather to questionable miracle tonics. Anna stood with Maggie and Jamie near the schoolhouse booth, where she'd arranged a display of primers and chalk slates to drum up interest in the upcoming term. Despite the festive atmosphere, she noticed the way conversation stilled when she passed, how eyes tracked her movements with suspicion and curiosity. "There's Mr. Carver," Jamie pointed excitedly. Boone approached through the crowd, looking uncomfortable in his clean shirt and freshly brushed hat. The past week had seen Maggie taking riding lessons at his ranch, with Jamie joining when his strength allowed. The visits had become a bright spot in their adjustment to frontier life. "Mrs. Quinn." Boone touched his hat brim. "Maggie, Jamie, enjoying the festival?" "It's wonderful," Maggie said, though her eyes were scanning the crowd with interest that had nothing to do with merchandise. At 16, she was beginning to notice the young ranch hands who strutted past in their best clothes. "Anna's got a surprise," Jamie announced before his sister could stop him. "She's been working on something secret all week." Boone raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks. "It's nothing dramatic, just a small experiment." Before she could explain, a commotion near the auction platform drew their attention. Silas Crook had climbed onto the makeshift stage, his voice carrying over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the railroad has been victim to numerous robberies these past months. We're offering a reward of $500 for information leading to the capture of these criminals." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. $500 was more than most saw in a year. Crook continued, "We have reason to believe the thieves are being aided by someone in town, someone who arrived recently, perhaps someone who might have connections we don't know about." His eyes found Anna in the crowd, and his meaning was clear. "That's enough. Crook." Boone stepped forward, his voice carrying, "You want to make accusations, do it properly, not through innuendo at a public festival. Just stating facts. Carver, though I wonder at your quick defense, getting sweet on the schoolmarm." Laughter rippled through some of the crowd, but it had an ugly edge. Anna felt Maggie tense beside her, saw Jamie's hands clench into small fists. "Mr. Crook," Anna said, her teacher's voice cutting through the noise. "Since you're so concerned about the robberies, perhaps you'd be interested in contributing to our trap." The crowd quieted. Crook's eyes narrowed. "Trap." Anna reached into her booth and withdrew a small strongbox. "I've arranged with several merchants to auction this box of silver certificates. Marked bills, of course, though that won't be announced. Whoever buys it will be doing a civic service if these bills turn up in the wrong hands. We'll know our thieves." It was a bluff. Mostly, the certificates were real but worth far less than she implied. Still, the idea was sound, and she saw Hadley nodding approvingly from the edge of the crowd. "Clever," Crook said slowly. "Very clever. And who suggested this plan?" "I did," Anna replied steadily. "Unless you're suggesting a schoolteacher from Missouri is incapable of rational thought." Before Crook could respond, a woman pushed through the crowd. She wore an elegant green dress despite the dust, her dark hair pinned in a style too fashionable for Arroyo del Sol. Something about her face, the shape of her jaw, the set of her eyes made Boone tense. "What an interesting idea," the woman said, her voice cultured but with an undertone that raised the hair on Anna's neck. "I'm Eleanor Ward. I don't believe we've met. Mrs. Quinn." Anna's pulse quickened. Eleanor Ward E. Dubbu, the initials from the handkerchief. Miss Ward. Anna inclined her head politely. Are you new to town as well? Just passing through, but I couldn't resist the festival. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. I might even bid on your certificates. One should always support education. The woman moved past, but as she did, Anna caught a glimpse of something at her neckline, a thin scar that disappeared beneath the lace collar. Their eyes met for an instant, and Anna saw calculation there, cold and measuring. I need some air, Anna murmured to Boone. He guided her away from the crowd, Maggie and Jamie following. They found a quiet spot behind the livery stable where barrels provided makeshift seating. That woman, Anna said quietly. She's connected to this somehow. What makes you think so? Boone asked, though his expression suggested he'd had the same thought. The way she looked at me, like she was measuring me for a coffin. Anna shook her head, and appearing just as I announced the marked bills. Could be coincidence, Maggie offered, though she sounded doubtful. Anna, Jamie said suddenly. Her voice was wrong. They all turned to look at the boy. Jamie had a peculiar talent for noticing details others missed. What do you mean, sweetheart? Anna asked. She talked fancy, but sometimes the words sat funny, like when Pa used to imitate those city buyers. Remember, he'd put on airs, but you could tell it wasn't natural. Boone and Anna exchanged glances, out of the mouths of babes. A burst of gunfire made them all jump, but it was just Cowboy celebrating. The auction had begun, and they could hear the auctioneer's rapid patter. I should get back, Anna said. See who bids on those certificates. They returned to find the crowd thick around the platform. The strong box of certificates was just coming up for bid. Anna scanned the crowd for Eleanor Ward but didn't see her. $20, someone called. 25. The bidding climbed steadily. Then, from the back, $100. Heads turned. A man Anna didn't recognize stood with his hand raised, middle-aged, well-dressed, with the soft look of someone who worked with paper rather than cattle. 150. Eleanor Ward's voice came from another part of the crowd. The man countered. 200. 300. Eleanor sounded amused now. The crowd was riveted. This was more entertainment than they'd had in months. The man looked frustrated but determined. $400. 500, Eleanor said smoothly. The man's shoulders sagged. The auctioneer called it once, twice. $600. A new voice, gravelly and commanding. Anna turned to see a woman she hadn't noticed before. Where Eleanor Ward was polished, this woman was rough-hewn. Her clothes were quality but practical, and she wore them with the ease of someone used to hard living. Most striking were her eyes, the same unusual amber color as Eleanor's. 700, Eleanor countered, but there was tension in her voice now. $1,000, the rough woman said flatly. Cash. The crowd gasped. Even Crook looked stunned. The auctioneer, recovering his wits, quickly closed the bidding. As the woman approached to collect her purchase, she had to pass near Anna. For just a moment, their eyes met, and the woman winked so quickly, Anna almost thought she'd imagined it. Interesting friends you're making, Boone murmured. Before Anna could respond, chaos erupted. Someone shouted fire, and smoke began pouring from the mercantile. In the confusion that followed, people running with buckets, horses spooked by the smoke, Anna lost sight of both mysterious women. By the time the fire was controlled, minor damage, more smoke than flame. Both Eleanor Ward and the woman who'd bought the certificates had vanished. Like they were never here, Hadley said, mopping his brow. He'd organized the bucket brigade with surprising efficiency. The certificates? Anna asked. Gone with the buyer, though I'd bet my badge they won't surface in any robbery. He gave Anna a meaningful look. That was a risky play. Mrs. Quinn. And did it work? Maybe drew someone out. Anyway, question is, which one's our thief? As the crowd dispersed and merchants began cleaning up, Boone walked Anna and her siblings back to the hotel. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "You think they were working together?" Maggie asked. "Those two women." "I think," Anna said slowly, "that we just watched a very dangerous game play out, and somehow I'm being used as a piece on the board." At the hotel entrance, Boone paused. "Anna, I don't like this. These people, whoever they are, they're playing for keeps." She met his concerned gaze. "I know, but I can't just hide and hope it goes away. Not with my name being used to cover their crimes." "Then we'd better figure out their game before the next move." Boone said, "Because something tells me it's coming soon." As if in answer to his words, a rider galloped into town, horse lathered with sweat. "Another robbery," he shouted. "The Patterson mine payroll taken not 2 hours ago." Anna closed her eyes. The festival had been a diversion. While everyone watched the elaborate bidding war, the real crime was happening miles away. "Clever," she said quietly. "Draw everyone to town, create a spectacle, and rob the mine while it's lightly guarded." Boone finished. "These aren't ordinary thieves we're dealing with." As night fell over Arroyo del Sol, Anna stood at her window watching the town settle into uneasy quiet. Somewhere out there, Eleanor Ward and her mysterious competitor were playing a game that threatened to destroy everything Anna had come here to build. But as she watched Boone mount his horse and head home, checking the street carefully before riding out, she realized she wasn't facing this alone. Whatever came next, she had allies: a former marshal seeking redemption, a sister brave beyond her years, a brother who saw what others missed. And perhaps that would be enough to survive the storm that was surely coming. The first drops of rain began falling just after sunset, unusual for the season. By the time Anna reached Boone's ranch, the drops had become a steady downpour, turning the dusty trail into mud. She'd come alone, leaving Maggie and Jamie safe at the hotel with Mrs. Elmore. The events at the festival had shaken something loose. She needed to talk to someone who understood the weight of carrying other people's safety on their shoulders. Boone opened the door before she could knock, concern etched on his face. "Anna, what are you doing out in this weather?" "I'm sorry," she said, water dripping from her cloak. "I know it's late, but—" "Come in," he said immediately, stepping aside. "You're soaked through." The ranch house was simple but warm, with pine floors that gleamed in the lamplight. The smell of wood smoke and leather created an atmosphere of comfort she hadn't expected. Boone handed her a towel and gestured to a chair by the fire. "I'll make coffee," he said, giving her a moment to compose herself. Anna removed her wet cloak and sat, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Through the window, she could see lightning flash across the distant mountains. The storm was intensifying, and she realized she might be here for a while. Boone returned with 2 steaming mugs. He'd changed from his town clothes into a worn flannel shirt and canvas pants, looking more like himself. A cut on his hand caught her attention. "You're hurt," she said. He glanced down. "Just a scrape. Was checking the horses when I heard about the mine robbery. Found fresh tracks by my well again. Someone's been watching the ranch." "Let me see." Anna set down her coffee and took his hand. Examining the cut, it wasn't deep, but it needed cleaning. "Do you have medical supplies?" He gestured to a shelf, and she retrieved what she needed. As she cleaned the wound, she was acutely aware of his nearness, the way the firelight played across his features. "You didn't ride out here in a storm to tend my scratches," he said quietly. "No," she admitted, wrapping a clean bandage around his hand. "I came because I'm frightened, not for myself, but for Maggie and Jamie. These people, whoever they are, they're using my name, making me part of their crimes. What if the town decides they've had enough? What if they come for us?" "They won't," Boone said firmly. "I won't let them." She looked up at him. You can't fight the whole town. I've fought worse odds. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and she realized she was still holding his bandaged hand. Anna, you're not alone in this anymore. The rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rolled across the valley. In the lamplight, with a storm raging outside, the rest of the world seemed very far away. Sometimes, Anna said softly, I wonder what would have happened if we'd never come here. If I'd kept running, found somewhere else. Then Arroyo del Sol would have lost the best thing to happen to it in years. Boone said, and I'd have spent my life hiding behind these walls, afraid to care about anything again. Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with more than storm electricity. Anna's heart was pounding, but not from fear now. Boone, she whispered. He leaned closer, his free hand rising to cup her cheek. Tell me to stop, he said roughly. Tell me this is a mistake. Instead, she tilted her face up to his. Their lips met, tentative at first, then with growing passion. Anna's hands found their way to his shoulders, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and loss transforming into desperate need. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Boone rested his forehead against hers. Anna, he said, voice hoarse. She silenced him with another kiss, this one slower, deeper. Don't, she murmured against his lips. Don't think, just feel. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her from the chair. She went willingly, her body molding against his as the storm raged outside. Every nerve was alive, every sense heightened. Deeper, Cowboy. She moaned as his kiss traveled to her throat, and his arms crushed her close, his kiss setting her soul ablaze. The lamplight flickered, casting dancing shadows as the storm reached its peak. Rain lashed the windows and thunder shook the small house. But inside, there was only warmth and connection. Two souls finding comfort in each other against the darkness of the world. Later. They sat together on the hearth, Anna wrapped in a quilt, leaning against Boone's shoulder. The storm had begun to ease, though rain still pattered steadily on the roof. What happens now? Anna asked quietly. Boone's arm tightened around her. Now we face whatever comes. Together. The town will talk. Let them. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I'm done caring what people think. Done hiding. Anna turned to look at him. This isn't just about the robberies anymore, is it? No, he admitted. It stopped being just about that the moment you stood up to Crook. Maybe even before when you looked at me in the hotel that first day. Not with fear or calculation, but like you saw something worth seeing. I did, she said simply. I do. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn low. Finally, Anna sighed. I should get back. Maggie will worry. Not in this weather. Boone said, the creek between here and town will be running high. It's dangerous to cross at night. As if to emphasize his point, a fresh wave of rain hammered the windows. Anna bit her lip, torn between propriety and practicality. You can have my bed, Boone said. I'll take the barn. No, Anna said firmly. This is your home. I'll take the settee. They compromised. Anna took the bed while Boone bedded down by the fire. But sleep eluded them both. The storm had awakened something that couldn't easily be put back to rest. Boone? Anna called softly in the darkness. Yeah. What you said about Tom Brennan, your partner. You blame yourself. Silence stretched between them before he answered. Every day. It wasn't your fault. Knowing that and believing it are different things. Anna rose and padded barefoot to where he lay. She knelt beside him, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. Then let me believe it for you, until you can believe it yourself. He reached up, fingers tangling gently in her hair. You're going to complicate my life terribly, aren't you? Count on it, she whispered, leaning down to kiss him again. The storm passed near dawn, leaving the world washed and gleaming. Anna woke to find Boone already up. Coffee brewing and breakfast started. "Morning," he said, his smile soft and private. "Morning." She felt suddenly shy, aware of her disheveled state and what had passed between them. Not physically, they'd maintained that boundary, but emotionally. Something fundamental had shifted. "I'll ride you back to town," Boone said. "The creek should be passable now." As Anna dressed and prepared to leave, she noticed papers on Boone's table map similar to the ones she'd used, but with additional markings. "What are these?" "I've been tracking the robberies," he said, looking for patterns. "See here?" He pointed to several marked locations. "They're hitting specific targets all connected to either the railroad or the mining consortium." "Selective thieves," Anna mused. "Not random at all." And always when something else is drawing attention. The festival yesterday, a funeral the week before, a wedding before that. Anna studied the pattern. They're not just thieves. They're sending a message. Or settling scores. Boone rolled up the maps. "Anna, I think this is bigger than just robbery. I think someone's waging a private war against the railroad and mining interests. Using my name as cover, which means they chose you specifically. The question is why." They rode back to town together, the morning sun making the puddles shine like mirrors. The familiar buildings of Arroyo del Sol looked different somehow, as if the storm had rearranged more than just the dust. At the hotel, Maggie was waiting on the porch, relief flooding her face when she saw them. "Anna, we were so worried. Mrs. Elmore said you never came back last night." "The storm caught me at Mr. Carver's ranch," Anna said evenly. "The creek was too high to cross safely." Maggie's knowing look suggested she wasn't entirely fooled, but she simply said, "Jamie's still sleeping. He had nightmares about the fire." Boone touched his hat. "I'll let you get settled, but Anna, be careful today. After last night's robbery, people will be on edge." His eyes said more than his words, and Anna felt warmth rise in her cheeks. "I will, thank you, Boone, for everything." As he rode away, Maggie slipped her arm through Anna's. "So," she said with forced casualness, "the storm was quite something." "Yes," Anna agreed, watching Boone's retreating figure. "It certainly was. Changed things, didn't it?" Anna looked at her too perceptive sister. "Everything's changing. Maggie, the question is whether we're strong enough to weather whatever storm comes next." But as they went inside to check on Jamie, Anna felt a new resolve settling in her bones. She'd spent so long running from the past, protecting what remained of her family, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to want something for herself. Now she knew. And whatever game Eleanor Ward and her mysterious adversary were playing, whatever dangers lurked in the shadows of Arroyo del Sol, Anna would face them. Not alone this time, but with a former marshal who'd remembered how to hope and the promise of something worth fighting for. The morning sun climbed higher, burning off the storm's memory, but Anna carried the echo of thunder in her heart, wild and dangerous and absolutely alive. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as Anna read the note that had been slipped under her door. Her hands trembled as she read it again. "If you want to see the boy alive, bring the silver certificates to Rattlesnake Bridge at sunset. Come alone. Tell no one." Jamie was gone. He'd left for his daily lessons with the Mescalero blacksmith, Santiago, but never arrived. Maggie had discovered his absence an hour ago, and now this note confirmed Anna's worst fears. "We have to tell Boone," Maggie said, her face pale but determined. "And the marshal?" "No." Anna's voice was steel. "The note says alone. These people have already proven they'll do anything. I won't risk Jamie's life." "Anna, you can't." "I can and I will." She moved to her trunk, withdrawing the certificates she'd kept after the auction, not the real ones that had been sold, but convincing forgeries she'd had made as a precaution. "Stay here. If I'm not back by full dark, then find Boone. Maggie grabbed her arm. This is what they want, to isolate you, to... I know. Anna pulled her sister into a fierce embrace. But Jamie needs me. I failed to protect your parents in that fire. I won't fail him. She left before Maggie could argue further. Saddling the mare Boone had loaned her with hands that wanted to shake. The ride to Rattlesnake Bridge took her through the desolate stretch of canyon country that separated Arroyo del Sol from the mining camps. As she rode, her mind raced. Eleanor Ward, or whoever she really was, had finally made her move. But why take Jamie? Why not simply steal what she wanted? The answer came as she spotted Rattlesnake Bridge in the distance. They needed her compliance for something bigger than theft. The bridge was an old wooden structure spanning a deep gorge where Rattlesnake Creek ran far below. Storm clouds were building to the north, promising another unseasonable deluge. Anna dismounted at the bridge's entrance, the certificates in her saddlebag. Punctual. I appreciate that in a woman. Anna turned to find Eleanor Ward emerging from the rocks, but she looked different. Gone were the elegant clothes and refined manner. This woman wore practical riding gear, and her face held a hardness that belonged to someone who'd lived rough. Where's Jamie? Safe. For now. Eleanor, though Anna doubted that was her real name, gestured to the bridge. Shall we talk? I brought what you asked for. Anna held up the satchel. Did you, or did you bring forgeries? Thinking I wouldn't check. The woman smiled at Anna's expression. Oh, yes, Mrs. Quinn. I know all about your clever little trap at the festival, just as I know those aren't the real certificates. Anna's heart sank. Then why? Because I need something else from you. Your signature on a document, a simple transfer of deed. I don't own any property here. No, but Boone Carver does, and I believe he'd sign anything to keep you safe. The woman produced a folded paper. The deed to his ranch, specifically the water rights and mineral claims beneath it. Understanding crashed over Anna like cold water. You're not really a thief at all. Oh, I'm a thief. Name's Vera Blackthorne. By the way, Eleanor Ward was just a costume. Vera's smile was sharp as a blade. But you're right, this isn't about stagecoach money. It's about what's under that land. Silver. Enough to make everyone rich. If they knew about it. Crook knows, Anna said slowly. That's why he's been pressuring Boone. Smart woman. Crook hired me to get rid of you. Actually, pin the robberies on the newcomer, run you out of town, or see you hanged. Either way, Boone would be vulnerable, ready to sell cheap. Vera shrugged. But then I learned about the silver, and well, plans change. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was moving fast. So you decided to cut Crook out and take it yourself, Anna said. With your help. See, I have already established Eleanor Ward as a respectable investor. Once I have the deed, properly transferred, I'll be legitimate. Crook can hardly cry theft when he hired me to commit crimes in the first place. And if I refuse? Vera's expression hardened. That boy's smart. Be a shame if he had an accident. Children fall into mine shafts all the time out here. Anna's rage was a living thing, but she forced it down. How do I know Jamie's even alive? In response, Vera whistled. Two riders appeared from the opposite end of the bridge, rough-looking men Anna recognized from wanted posters. Between them on a third horse sat Jamie, hands tied but apparently unharmed. Anna, he called out. It's all right, sweetheart. Anna called back, though her heart was breaking. Everything's going to be fine. Touching. Vera held out the deed. Now then, you'll sign Boone Carver's name. I've seen his signature. So make it good and date it 3 days ago. Before anyone knew about the silver, he'll know it's forged. Will he when it's your handwriting, when everyone knows you spent the night at his ranch? Vera's smile was poisonous. Sign it, or the boy goes over the side. Anna took the paper with numb fingers. The wind was picking up, making the bridge creak ominously. She could hear the creek far below. swollen with runoff from the previous storm. As she pretended to study the document, she spotted movement in the rocks, a flash of white that might have been a horse. Her heart leaped, the white-headed Mustang from Boone's ranch. "Hurry up," Vera snapped. "That storm's coming fast." Anna bent to sign, then stopped. "No." "What?" "I said no." Anna straightened, meeting Vera's eyes. "You killed Jamie. You get nothing, and you need this deed more than you need to hurt a child." Vera's face darkened. "You're gambling with his life." "No, you are. I'm calling your bluff." Anna tore the deed in half. "New deal. Let Jamie go, and I'll help you expose Crook's crimes, the real ones. Murder, conspiracy, theft. You can have your revenge and disappear a rich woman." "Anna, no!" Jamie cried out. But Anna kept her eyes on Vera. She'd learned to read people during her husband's gambling days, and what she read now was greed warring with rage. Lightning split the sky. The first fat raindrops began to fall. "You're clever," Vera admitted. "But not clever enough." She drew her pistol. "Boys, bring the kid to the middle of the bridge." What happened next came in flashes. The white-headed Mustang bursting from the rocks, Maggie on its back, riding like fury itself. Boone appearing from the opposite direction, rifle aimed steady despite the wind. Marshal Hadley and his hastily deputized posse emerging from cover, and Silas Crook himself, looking apoplectic as he realized his carefully laid plans were unraveling. "Nobody move," Hadley shouted over the rising storm. But Vera was already moving, grabbing Anna as a shield. "Back off, all of you." The bridge swayed as horses and people crowded onto it. Rain came down in sheets now, making the wooden planks treacherous. "Let them go, Vera!" Boone called out, his voice cutting through the storm. "It's over." "Nothing's over." She pressed her pistol to Anna's temple. "I've worked too hard." The crack of splintering wood cut her off. The bridge, old and weakened by storms, began to buckle under the weight and stress. Horses screamed, men shouted, and everyone scrambled for solid ground. In the chaos, Anna broke free and lunged for Jamie. One of Vera's men grabbed for the boy, but Maggie was there, swinging a riding crop with deadly accuracy. Boone waded through the melee, reaching them just as the bridge gave a terminal groan. "Run!" he shouted. They ran, Anna dragging Jamie, Boone carrying Maggie, who'd twisted her ankle, as the bridge collapsed behind them. Through the rain and chaos, Anna saw Vera make a desperate leap for the far side. She almost made it, her hands caught the edge, but the wet wood was too slick. With a scream lost in the storm, she fell into the churning water below. The survivors huddled on the muddy bank, watching the remnants of the bridge wash away. Crook tried to slip away in the confusion, but Hadley's men were waiting. "Silas Crook," the marshal said with grim satisfaction. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and about a dozen other charges I'll think of by the time we get back to town." "You can't prove anything," Crook blustered. "Actually, we can." Anna pulled a small leather journal from inside her coat, waterlogged but intact. "Vera kept records, very detailed records. She gave them to me as insurance when she first approached me at the festival. I've been waiting for the right moment to use them." Crook's face went white as he recognized his own handwriting in the journal Hadley was now examining. As the storm began to pass, Anna found herself wrapped in Boone's arms, Jamie clinging to them both while Maggie sat nearby, grinning despite her swollen ankle. "How did you know?" Anna asked. "Maggie," Boone said simply. "She rode that Mustang bareback through a thunderstorm to find me. Bravest thing I've ever seen." "I wasn't letting them have you," Maggie said fiercely. "Either of you." Hadley approached, looking older but somehow lighter. "Mrs. Quinn, I owe you an apology, and my thanks. You've helped clean up this town in ways I never could." "I just wanted to teach school," Anna said wearily. Well, ma'am, I'd say you've taught us all a lesson. He tipped his hat. Boone, I could use a good man wearing a deputy star again, if you're interested. Boone looked at Anna, a question in his eyes. She smiled, answering it. We'll think about it, he said. As they made their way back to town, a strange procession of muddy, rain-soaked survivors, Anna reflected on the twists of fate that had brought them here. She'd come west running from one kind of danger, only to find another. But she'd also found something she hadn't been looking for, a home, a future, and a love worth fighting for. Jamie tugged on her hand. Anna, is it over now, really over? She looked ahead to where Arroyo del Sol waited, its lights beginning to glow in the gathering dusk. Tomorrow there would be explanations, paperwork, probably a trial. But tonight... Yes, sweetheart, she said, squeezing his hand. The bad part's over. Now the good part begins. And despite everything, the danger, the fear, the close calls she found, she actually believed it. The storm had passed, literally and figuratively, leaving the air clean and full of promise. Beside her, Boone reached over and took her other hand, and Anna Quinn knew she was exactly where she belonged. The courthouse in Santa Fe was packed to capacity, with people standing in the aisles and crowding outside the windows. Word of the Arroyo del Sol conspiracy had spread throughout the territory, drawing journalists, railroad officials, and curious citizens eager to witness justice served. Anna sat in the witness box, her back straight and voice clear, as she recounted the events leading to Rattlesnake Bridge. In the defendant's chair, Silas Crook looked diminished, his usual bluster replaced by the sullen demeanor of a man who knew his fate was sealed. The journal recovered from Vera Blackthorne's belongings, the prosecutor said, holding up the water-stained ledger. Details payments from Mr. Crook for various criminal activities. Mrs. Quinn, can you identify this handwriting? Yes, Anna replied. I compared it to official railroad documents. It matches Mr. Crook's hand exactly. From the gallery. She caught Boone's eye. He nodded encouragingly. Jamie and Maggie seated beside him. The boy had bounced back from his ordeal with the resilience of youth, while Maggie wore her adventure like a badge of honor. The trial proceeded swiftly, with Vera's meticulous records and testimony from various townspeople who'd suffered under Crook's schemes. The verdict was never really in doubt. When the judge pronounced Crook guilty on all counts, a collective sigh seemed to run through the courtroom. Outside, Marshal Hadley, now sporting a federal marshal's badge thanks to his work on the case, shook Anna's hand. You did well in there, Mrs. Quinn. Clear, concise, believable. I just told the truth. Anna said, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. He turned to Boone. The offer still stands. You know, I could use a deputy with your experience. Boone glanced at Anna. I'll think on it. Tom, right now, we need to get home. Home? The word warmed Anna more than the autumn sunshine. In the weeks since the bridge incident, Arroyo del Sol had transformed from a place of suspicion to a true community. The journey back took 2 days, with an overnight stop at a way station. As they sat around the evening fire, Jamie peppered Boone with questions about tracking and frontier life, while Maggie practiced her marksmanship with an unloaded rifle. She's getting good, Boone observed, watching Maggie's form. Too good, Anna said with mock severity. I'm raising a schoolmarm, not a sharpshooter. Who says she can't be both? Maggie called out, having overheard. This is the frontier. Anna, women need to be capable of everything. Anna couldn't argue with that logic. The past months had certainly proven it true. That night, after the children were asleep, Anna and Boone sat together under the vast canopy of stars. They'd been careful about appearances since that storm-swept night at his ranch, but the connection between them had only grown stronger. The town's been talking, Boone said quietly, about us. Let them talk. It's different now, though Not scandal-mongering, more like hopeful speculation. He took her hand. Mrs. Elmore asked me outright yesterday when I was planning to make an honest woman of you. Anna laughed. What did you tell her? That Anna Quinn is already the most honest woman I know. He turned to face her fully. But she had a point. Anna's heart began to race. Boone! I'm not much for fancy speeches, he said, but these past months, watching you fight for your family, for justice, for the town, you've reminded me what it means to live with purpose, to believe in something beyond just surviving another day. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a simple gold band. It was my mother's. She'd have liked you brave, stubborn, too smart for your own good. Are you calling me stubborn? Anna asked, though her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Among other things. His voice grew serious. Marry me, Anna. Not because the town expects it, or for propriety's sake, but because I can't imagine facing another sunrise without knowing you'll be there to face it with me. Anna looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the life stretching out before them. Yes, she said simply. Yes, of course. His kiss was tender, full of promise and possibility. When they finally drew apart, Anna was laughing and crying at once. Maggie's going to be insufferable, she said. She's been hinting for weeks. Jamie, too. Kid asked me last week if he should start calling me Pa. Boone's voice roughened with emotion. Told him that was up to you. What did he say? That you were smart enough to make the right choice. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Guess he was right. They returned to Arroyo del Sol to find the town transformed. Banners stretched across Main Street proclaiming, "Welcome home, heroes." The schoolhouse had been repainted, and a new bell installed in the tower. What's all this? Anna asked as they climbed down from the wagon. Mrs. Elmore bustled forward, beaming. The town council met while you were gone, voted to increase the school budget and provide proper housing for our teacher and her family. She winked at Boone. All of her family. Behind her, Santiago the blacksmith stepped forward with a wrapped bundle. For the senorita who rides like the wind, he said, presenting it to Maggie. Inside was a beautifully tooled saddle, decorated with silver conchos. I can't accept this, Maggie stammered. You saved the boy, Santiago said firmly. In my culture, such courage must be honored. As the afternoon wore on, it seemed the entire town had come out to celebrate. Tables were set up in the square, laden with food. Musicians appeared with guitars and fiddles, and soon couples were dancing on the packed earth. Anna found herself pulled aside by several women who'd previously kept their distance. We owe you an apology, said Mrs. Patterson, wife of the mine owner. We were quick to judge, slow to help. That wasn't Christian of us. Water under the bridge, Anna said, meaning it, or over it. In this case, the woman laughed nervously at the reference. Well, we wanted you to know the town's behind you now, all of you. And when you're ready to expand the school, we'll be there to help. As evening fell and lanterns were lit, Boone found Anna standing by the schoolhouse, looking thoughtful. Regrets? He asked. No, just thinking about how different it all could have been. If Vera had succeeded, if Crook had won. But they didn't. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. Evil only wins when good people stop fighting. You never stopped. Neither did you. They stood together, watching the celebration continue. Jamie was engaged in a spirited game of horseshoes with other boys his age, finally accepted as one of them. Maggie was holding court near the musicians, no doubt regaling admirers with her version of the chase to Rattlesnake Bridge. The mayor asked me to consider running for town council, Anna said. Claims we need someone who understands both education and justice. You'd be good at it. Maybe, after we get the school properly established. She turned in his arms. And after our wedding, I was thinking a Christmas ceremony. Give the town something else to celebrate? Whatever you want. Though I'd marry you tomorrow if you'd let me. Patience, Cowboy, she said, echoing words from that night at his ranch. Good things are worth waiting for. The party continued late into the night, but eventually, families began drifting home. Anna made sure Jamie and Maggie were settled at the hotel their last night there before moving into the new teacher's residence, then found herself walking with Boone toward the edge of town. They stopped at the spot where the road split, one path leading to his ranch, the other back to town. Soon we won't have to say goodnight, Boone said. Soon, Anna agreed, but not tonight. He kissed her once more, a gentle promise of all the nights to come, then mounted his horse. Anna watched him ride away, then turned back toward town. The streets were quiet now, peaceful in a way they hadn't been when she first arrived. In the distance, she could hear the night sounds of the desert coyotes calling, an owl's hunt, the whisper of wind through sage. Tomorrow, there would be lessons to plan, a household to establish, a future to build. There would be challenges, too. The frontier didn't give up its hardships easily. But tonight, Anna Quinn stood in the middle of a town that had become home, wearing a ring that promised she'd never face those challenges alone. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and eternal, witness to all the human dramas that played out beneath them. In Arroyo del Sol, one such drama had found its resolution not in the flash of gunfire or the verdict of a court, but in the quieter victories of courage recognized, community rebuilt, and love discovered in the most unlikely of places. As Anna made her way back to the hotel, she passed the spot where she'd first met Boone, where Jamie had stumbled and a stranger's kindness had set everything in motion. She smiled, remembering her fear and uncertainty that day. Now, the future stretched before her like the desert after rain, vast and challenging. Yes, but also beautiful and full of life. And Anna Quinn, soon to be Anna Carver, was ready to meet it head on. Surrounded by family, both blood and chosen. In a town that had tested her courage and found it true. The school bell would ring again come Monday, calling the children of Arroyo del Sol to learn and grow. And their teacher would be there, ready to shape not just their minds, but their characters, preparing them for whatever adventures the frontier might bring. For now, though, she simply walked through the quiet streets toward her sleeping children, her heart full of gratitude for storms weathered and peace hard won, for second chances and new beginnings, and for the knowledge that sometimes the greatest treasures were found not in silver mines or stolen strongboxes, but in the connections forged between souls brave enough to stand together against the darkness. The first snow of winter dusted the mountains surrounding Arroyo del Sol as Anna stood in the doorway of the newly completed schoolhouse addition. 3 months had passed since the trial, and the town had embraced progress with surprising enthusiasm. The school now boasted 2 rooms, one for younger students, one for older, and a small library funded by donations from grateful townspeople. "To Mrs. Carver, look." Young Timothy Patterson held up his slate proudly. "I wrote my whole name." Anna smiled, still adjusting to her married name. The Christmas wedding had been everything she'd dreamed, simple, sincere, and surrounded by the community that had become family. "Excellent work, Timothy. Keep practicing, and soon you'll be writing letters to your grandmother in Denver." Through the window, she could see Boone working with several men to reinforce the covered well that now served the town center. His deputy's star caught the morning light as he directed the work. He'd accepted Hadley's offer after all, bringing the same quiet competence to law enforcement that he brought to everything else. "Anna!" Maggie burst through the door, her cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. At nearly 17, she'd grown into a confident young woman who assisted with the younger students while finishing her own education. The stage just brought news from Santa Fe. The territorial legislature approved funding for 3 more schools in the county, all based on our model. "That's wonderful," Anna said, though she noticed Maggie's eyes held something more. "What else?" There's a letter from that college in Colorado, the one I wrote to about their teacher training program. Maggie produced an envelope with trembling hands. Anna's heart squeezed. She'd known this day would come. Maggie was too bright, too ambitious to stay in Arroyo del Sol forever. Well, what are you waiting for? Maggie tore open the letter, her eyes scanning quickly. A smile bloomed across her face. They accepted me for the fall term. They were impressed by my experience helping establish the school here. Oh, sweetheart. Anna pulled her sister into a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you. I don't have to go, Maggie said quickly. If you need me here. Don't you dare. Anna held her at arm's length. You've earned this. Besides, Arroyo del Sol needs trained teachers, and who better to come back and help run things than someone who knows the town? The school day continued with its usual rhythm reading lessons. Arithmetic, geography. Jamie had become her unofficial assistant for the younger boys, having grown 2 inches and gained a quiet authority that reminded Anna of Boone. The boy who'd once stumbled with fever now stood tall, helping others the way he'd been helped. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, Anna noticed a familiar figure approaching on horseback. Not Boone, he wasn't due back from patrol until evening, but Marshal Hadley, and he was riding hard. She met him at the door. Tom, what's wrong? Nothing wrong, he said, catching his breath. But you'll want to hear this. Remember Vera Blackthorne? Anna's blood chilled. She died at the bridge. That's what we thought. But I just got word from the Rangers. They pulled a woman from the Rio Grande last month, half drowned and raving. She's alive, Anna, and she's talking. Anna gripped the door frame. Talking about what? Everything. Seems her brush with death gave her a change of heart. She's confessing to crimes across 3 territories, naming names. Hadley's expression was grim but satisfied. The corruption goes deeper than we thought. There's going to be a reckoning from here to California. Will she come after us? She's headed for prison, likely for the rest of her days. But she asked me to give you a message. He pulled out a sealed note. Anna took it with numb fingers, opening it carefully. The handwriting was shaky but recognizable. Mrs. Quinn or Carver now. I won't ask for forgiveness. We both know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that in all my years of running games, you were the only Mark who ever beat me fair. You saw through the con and raised the stakes. I respect that. Tell the boy I'm sorry. Some of us choose the darkness, but you chose to be the light. Don't let it go out. V.B. Anna folded the note slowly. She's really done no more schemes. She's done, Hadley confirmed. You can put that chapter behind you for good. After he left, Anna stood quietly for a moment, processing this final twist. Then she returned to her students, to the life she'd built from the ashes of fear and suspicion. That evening, the Carver family gathered for dinner in their new home, a modest but comfortable house behind the school. The table was lively with conversation as Jamie recounted his day's adventures and Maggie shared her college plans. I'll need new clothes for Colorado, Maggie was saying, and books, and we'll make sure you have everything you need. Boone assured her, you're representing Arroyo del Sol. After all, can't have you showing up looking like a saddle tramp. Boone, Anna laughed, swatting his arm. What? It's true. He grinned, then grew more serious. We're proud of you, Maggie, all of us. After dinner, as had become their custom, they gathered on the porch to watch the sunset. The town spread out before them, peaceful in the evening light. New buildings were going up, including a proper courthouse and a lending library. The railroad still ran through, but under new management that actually served the community's interests. It's different now, Jamie observed. The town, it feels safer. Stronger, Anna corrected gently. It was always safe enough, but now it's strong because people stand together instead of apart. Like a herd of Mustangs, Boone added. ruffling Jamie's hair. Harder to pick off when they run together.
Are you comparing our town to wild horses?
Anna asked with mock indignation. If the shoe fits. He pulled her closer on the bench. Besides, some of us appreciate a little wildness. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Anna reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A widow fleeing debts and danger, finding love and purpose in the most unlikely place. A man hiding from guilt, learning to lead again. Children growing strong and confident in a community that had learned to protect its own. Anna, Jamie's voice was thoughtful. Do you ever wish we'd stayed in Missouri? Never, she answered immediately. Not for 1 second. Even with all the danger, the robberies and trials and... Especially because of all that. She looked at each of them in turn, her chosen family. Her heart. Those trials showed us who we really are. They brought us together. They made us strong. The white-headed Mustang, now fully trained, whickered from the nearby corral as if in agreement. Jamie had claimed the horse as his own, naming him Storm for the night that had changed everything. I should check the animals, Boone said, but made no move to rise. In a minute, Anna said, leaning into his warmth. They sat in companionable silence as the desert night sounds began the distant howl of coyotes, the rustle of night birds, the whisper of wind through cottonwood trees. It was a symphony Anna had learned to love, the music of home. Later, after the children had gone to bed, Anna and Boone stood together at the kitchen window. The moon had risen, casting silver light across the landscape. Regrets? Boone asked, echoing his question from months ago. None, Anna said firmly. You? Just one. She looked up at him, concerned. What? That it took so long to find you. He kissed her temple. All those years I wasted, hiding from life. Not wasted, Anna corrected. They made you who you are, the man I fell in love with, the man our children look up to, the man this town needs. Our children, he repeated softly. I like the sound of that. Good, because I have something to tell you. She took his hand, placing it gently on her still flat stomach. Come spring, there's going to be another little Carver running around. Boone's eyes widened, then filled with a joy so pure it took Anna's breath away. Are you sure? Doc Morrison confirmed it yesterday. I wanted to wait for the right moment to tell you. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen while she laughed and protested half-heartedly about waking the children. A baby, he said wonderingly when he finally set her down. Our baby. Our baby, Anna confirmed. Think the town can handle another Carver? The town can handle anything now, Boone said with conviction. We've proven that. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and silent, blanketing the desert in pristine white. It would melt by noon tomorrow, but for now, it transformed Arroyo del Sol into something magical, something new. Anna thought of the letter she'd write to Maggie next fall, telling her about the baby, about the town's continued growth, about Jamie's achievements. She thought of the students who would pass through her classroom in the years to come, shaped by the lessons of courage and community they'd all learned together. Most of all, she thought of the title that had once seemed like her doom, the desperate words that had brought danger and suspicion, but ultimately led to everything she held dear deeper, Cowboy. Now those words held different memories of trust found in darkness, of love discovered in chaos, of a life rebuilt from fragments into something beautiful and whole. The snow continued to fall, and, in the warmth of their kitchen, Anna and Boone began making plans for the future, a nursery to build, a deputy to train before Boone took over as marshal, a school that would need expanding again. It was a good life, Anna thought, a life worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of fear that had brought them to this place. The West had tested them with its harsh beauty and unforgiving justice, but they had not merely survived, they had thrived. And in the morning, when the sun rose over Arroyo del Sol, It would shine on a town transformed by the courage of a few and the power of community. A place where justice had deep roots and love could grow as strong as the desert sage. The school bell would ring. Children would gather, and Anna Carver would teach them not just reading and arithmetic, but the greater lessons she'd learned that standing up to evil was always worth the risk. That family was more than blood, and that sometimes the most dangerous journey led straight to the place where you belonged. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I hope you enjoyed following Anna and Boone's journey through the dusty trails of Arroyo del Sol. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Please comment below and let me know what you thought of their adventure. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, justice, and romance in the Old West, please subscribe to Wild West Night for more stories that capture the spirit of the frontier. Don't forget to like this video and hit that hype button to help more listeners discover these tales of love and adventure in the American West. Until next time, partners, keep riding toward the sunset.